What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and welcome back to another Twitter thread discussion video. Today we are talking about Pokemon that are not currently in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but Pokemon we hope will be returning with the introduction of the DLC. Obviously, we know that with Pokemon Home coming out soon, we're going to be getting a lot of the Hisuian forms, but hopefully we can get some of the Pokemon that did not make the cut in last generation or in this one here as well. I'm going to go and start off with Pokemon that I really think are either going to be very good in this current metagame and a Pokemon that is near and dear to my heart. So if you guys are excited, then do me a favor and leave a like on the video. Make sure to follow us on Twitter so you can participate in this video next time as well. Subscribe to the channel as well because we're on the road to 4,000 subscribers. And of course, comment down below which Pokemon you would like to see introduced or reintroduced back into the game with the upcoming DLCs. Let's go ahead and jump on into it. So starting for me, I don't know why I have a Moongus on the screen here. I guess because it just starts with the letter A, but for me, it is definitely Milotic. That Pokemon is my mascot, okay? For those of you who don't know, I play Draft League, which is my preferred way to play competitive Pokemon. Essentially what you're doing is you draft a team of Pokemon, kind of like for fantasy sports, and you basically use only those Pokemon in the season. You can make some transactions just like you could in, well, regular fantasy sports, and in this case here, you only use those Pokemon against your opponents who can only use those Pokemon that they have drafted. So for example, if I take Milotic, that means you can't have Milotic unless there's very specific conditions, which we're not going to go into. Now, the main focus about this is Milotic is my logo. It's my mascot. My team is the Montreal Milotics, so I want to go ahead and have this Pokemon be back. I do think that as well as it just being a really good Pokemon, and of course my mascot, is that it's a Pokemon that is really defensive, bulky, has access to Flip Turn in previous generations, has access to Recover and Haze, has access to Marvel Skill, and with Terastallizing, I think it makes it really strong. So I do think that not just from an offense perspective or from a from mascot perspective or emotional reasons, it is going to be a very good Pokemon in competitive Pokemon. It's going to be a really good check to something like Chi-Yu, I find. It's also going to be really solid against handling something like a Chien-Pao, both of which are really good offensive Pokemon in the metagame, which is, again, really important. Also, I have Conkeldurr. Now, one of the reasons I have Conkeldurr here is because a lot of the Pokemon in the Sword and Shield, or the Scarlet and Violet metagame, excuse me, are weak to fighting. We have Pokemon that have just been banned like the Chi-Yu, but Chien-Pao is also weak to, and they Terastallize into a dark type pretty commonly. There's Pokemon that are really weak to fighting, and having one of the most powerful Mach Punches out there is amazing. Having access to Flame Orb with Mach Punch on your guts, and then running your Terastallize fighting is going to be insanely powerful. You're going to break things extremely well, and I do feel like it's a really good way to just decimate a lot of different teams, so I feel like the Conkeldurr works really well. Let's go ahead and start taking a look at what other people are saying here. We have Goldoa Dragon starting off. Mascot, you said Empoleon. No switch in game appearances and could keep defog, adding an extra piece of removal to the game, plus the agility and SD sets could definitely see play with Terra. Yeah, look, Empoleon was not in the game last time around in Sword and Shield. I hope that it kind of bring it back for Scarlet and Violet, just because you need to bring this Pokemon back. It's kind of ridiculous that you don't allow it to be back after what, in this case, will be 3 years, 4 years. It's too long. So having access to Empoleon is gonna be really nice. I hope they give it access to Flip Turn, which they, well, don't currently. Defog would be great for this thing to have access to, as well as Roost. Having access to these three moves is really important. It also gets access to Stealth Rocks just as a normal move itself, which is really valuable. I do think Empoleon's typing of Steel and Water is extremely good, but pair that with its stat distribution. The stats are fantastic. They're really well-rounded. It allows you to be offensive or defensive. It is, again, one of the best defensive types in general, has great speed for what it wants to do. Really, it's kind of like Swampert in a way. I wasn't never really a big fan of Empoleon, but the fact that it could get Flip Turn is really going to possibly change my opinion of it, because my opinion of Swampert changed pretty drastically once I saw that it got Flip Turn. So that's what I think about Empoleon. I would definitely love to see it in the game. Charizard got to come back again, so they need to free my boy Blastoise from Kurt. So Kirby is the coach of the Winnipeg Blue Blastoise, and so far a lot of water types. Now, Blastoise in a previous gen was nowhere near as strong as other Pokemon, but in Sword and Shield, it got access to a few new moves. It got access to Shell Smash. No, not Shell Slide, Shell Smash. And it also got access to Flip Turn. Having access, and well, of course, Life Dew as well, that's another one, but Life Dew wasn't seeing as much play. But in singles, Shell Smash and Flip Turn were insanely good because it allowed you to be a really good defensive pivot while also being the threat of an offensive breaker that could just sweep at any moment's notice, which is really valuable, especially when looking at its stat distribution. In general, tons of great stats, tons of really solid moves. Ice Beam, Dragon Pulse, you have Aura Sphere, Dark Pulse, have access to your powerful water moves. You wouldn't keep Scald, but you do have access to Surf and Hydro Pump, which are all really powerful. So I do feel like having access to Blastoise makes a lot of sense, and especially because they allowed Charizard to come back, they should allow Blastoise to come back too. So fingers crossed on that one. Next up is going to be Tone, who responded just a few minutes ago. Since you can never have too much defensive mons, Clefable and Ferrothorn for me. So Clefable not being in the game is interesting, and Ferrothorn is not in the game. Honestly, thank God. I really don't like Ferrothorn as a Pokemon. I feel like it's really annoying to deal with, and look, I get the appeal. I get why it is good. However, I just feel like I'd rather go with basically any other Pokemon on my team than a Ferrothorn most of the time. I know what it provides, but I would like to go other options. The fact that it's weak to only one type in fire is great. It's better now, the fact that Chi-Yu has been banned, but it's still going to be a really strong Pokemon nonetheless, both in singles and in doubles, assuming that maybe in a certain VGC series, the Paradox Pokemon, not Paradox Pokemon, yeah, Paradox and the Ruin Pokemon do get banned again. But we'll see. I think that Ferrothorn, for right now, if it was in the metagame, would definitely be a huge threat, even with all the fightings and even with all the fire types running around. I do also feel that Terastallization makes this Pokemon a little bit worse because they would Terastallize something into a fire type to be able to hit it with Terra Blast Fire. And I don't think people want to really waste their Terastal on a Ferrothorn when they could use it on a more offensive Pokemon. That usually would make more sense because Grass and Steel is a really good typing. Clefable, however, really bulky Pokemon with access to Unaware, and it's a big deal because we see how good Pokemon like Skeledirge is, because Skeledirge has access to Unaware, and its typing is fine. But imagine not having to run Boots on Skeledirge. That's Clefable. Clefable doesn't have to worry about Boots because it's not, well, first of all, it's not weak to rocks. It's not a fire type. It also has access to Magic Guard in case you don't want to run the Unaware, but that's all really good and everything. But it also has access to a lot of support moves, has access to Wish, has access to Teleport. We'll see how that goes in this generation. I mean, I wonder how it's going to go, but if it's, honestly, if Home is allowing us to transfer from Sword and Shield to Scarlet and Violet, it makes no sense why we wouldn't get access to Clefable with teleports in Scarlet and Violet. So yeah, I feel like it should be getting it. Either way, its coverage is really good on the special side. Just to read a couple of special moves to you. Special, oh my gosh, it's not going to show me. It gets access to, I know it gets Moonblast, it gets Ice Beam, it gets Thunderbolt, it gets Fire moves, of course. It's got a really wide move pool, and honestly, a Calm Mind set or a Cosmic Power set is insanely good in basically any metagame you could possibly be in. Next up though, we're going to be looking at Quincy, talking about looking mons that I believe could thrive in meta like this: Infernape, Mamoswine, and Swellow, but I'd also love to see Sharpedo, Cursula, and Duraludon. So a lot of options there. Infernape being a fast fire type, a fast fighting type, is really good. It's faster than Chi-Yu, which is nice. The fact that it gets access to Earthquake and fighting coverage, so that way it can beat opposing Chi-Yus, is really nice, assuming they're not Choice Scarf, is again really powerful. You have ways to power through a lot of different Pokemon with a really good coverage you have. The issue is the fact that you only have about 104. Is 104? I think it's 104 base attack and special attack, or is it 108? In Fernape, it is 104 base attack and special attack. It's not enough in a meta like this that is so offensive. I feel like power creep has really gone to the point where Infernape has really fallen off compared to a lot of other Pokemon. There's just better options for fires and fightings in the format now. Other than that though, Mamoswine, having access to Mamo in a format like this is always going to be nice because dragon types are going to be less scary, which is good. Dragons are really powerful right now. We look at Pokemon like Roaring Moon, we look at Pokemon like Dragonite. The issue is they're just Terastallizing into either a normal type or a dark type or a flying type. I guess flying is still weak to Priority Ice Shard, is just, it's not going to be as good as it used to be without Terastallizing. So I'm curious to see how Mamoswine does in a format with Terastallizing, even though you could just easily Terra Ice, but you most of the time I assume you want Terra Ground, just because Terra Ice is not the best defensive type, and Ice offensively, while it's good, it's not suited in a meta like this in my mind. Next up was Swellow. So Swellow has a really good speed set. I don't know if it was legal in last gen. I don't think it was legal last gen, but having access to a couple of really good sets, whether it's the Flame Orb Guts set, or if you went Scrappy with a Choice Specs and having access to Boom Burst, it's really good. It's an amazing Pokemon offensively because of the great speed that it has. And yes, while its stats are kind of below average for the rest of its stats, the fact that you have a Guts Facade is really crazy, especially when you pair that with Terrestrial Normal, or you go Terrestrial Normal, Scrappy, Choice Specs. It's really good. There's a lot of good things that you can do with Swellow. As for Sharpedo, Speed Boost would be really nice. Do I think it'd be much better in this gen than it would be in last gen? No, I think it's just below average at best. Cursula, I don't see why Cursula's on this list. Cursula has a lot missing in my mind. Just the fact that it has great stab options. It has great typing. It has access to Trick Room. The issue that I have with it is why on earth is its attack 95 and its defense 50? If you could switch those around, it'd be so much better. It'd be a much better Pokemon is what I wanted to say. And Duraludon, look, Duraludon was a Pokemon I had high expectations for, and it kind of fell flat. Again, another Pokemon I feel like, why does it have this high of an attack stat and this low of a speed F stat? Just switch it around. they'd be so much better in my mind. Even switch the speed and the special defense. But it is fast, it is a steel and dragon type, which is really nice. It's a decent typing overall. It beats down fairies, and as a dragon, that's a really big advantage. And I feel like if you terastallize either into a dragon or into a steel or into any other coverage option that you need, it could be very, very strong. Next up though, we're going to look at Hunby Bidoof talking about Ludicolo, make rain great again. So, okay, Ludicolo, would it be the best Swift Swim user in the game? Probably not. Right now, the best Swift Swim user in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is Floatzel. So Floatzel having access to Swift Swim with Wave Crash is insane, but also the fact that it has base 115 speed and 105 attack is really, really nice. That's the main advantage to having Pokemon like Floatzel, is just Wave Crash, really. It hits really hard, it's able to do a lot of damage, and it's got really solid coverage overall as well. Ice Spinner is nice, having access to Low Kick is great. All those moves there. Ludicolo's advantage is that it gets moves that are ice, grass, and water. And the water moves that it gets are not going to be as powerful as a move like Floatzel's Wave Crash. The advantage that it gets outside of just those moves is the fact that it can break down opposing water type Pokemon with the grass coverage, which is really, really nice. But the grass coverage you're getting is like Giga Drain, which is really what you're going to run. If you want to run grass, not you can, but that's the main option. Giga Drain is the main option here, and I don't really like that a lot. But defensively and offensively, it handles opposing rain, which I get it. Makes sense. Next up, we have Hawaiian Shaman talking about, I'd love to see a Gliscor and Infernape come back. I think both of these could be amazing tier users, Shaman too, but I feel like that would be a bit of a cop-out. So Gliscor, the fact that Gliscor hasn't been in the games in a while is a little unfortunate. I feel like it should be. Having access to the Poison Heal with the Toxic Orb is a really awesome strategy. Just super bulky, it's really hard as well with like, whether it's Facade, with Swords Dance are really strong. There's a lot of options that you could do, and I feel like we're missing out on having Gliscor in the metagame and seeing what we could do with it. But you turn on this with Defog, not Defend Order, Defog. It also has access to Stealth Rocks, has access to Roost. Just these moves here are all super unique. Well, unique's not the right word, but super valuable in competitive Pokemon. So I'm hoping to see that we can have them put in work when Gliscor does come back to the game eventually. And I love the stat distribution on this Pokemon. The distribution is like perfect to me. Why bother giving it any special attack at all? 45 is amazing. You can just shove that the rest of the investment in anywhere else. It's a great check to so many different things, and it's weak to only a couple of different types like ice and water. Next up is Lars. You might know him better as El Scizor, one of the founding fathers of the Draft League community. Imagine the Terra possibilities with that coverage on Mew. So Mew being introduced into this game, I think would be a mistake. It would not be one of the 10 best Pokemon out there, at least for right now. I'm not thinking it would be, but having Terastal on it is insane. Just the coverage that it gets, the fact that it can do basically anything in a Draft League specifically that would allow for any Terra area, any Terra type, Mew would be ridiculous. However, in a Draft League that would allow you to choose 1 or 2 Terra types, it would be nowhere near as threatening, not at all. In VGC, I don't even think it would be allowed. It would not be legal in VGC. And in Smogon, I think it would be an OU Pokemon still, but it would be either the standard like Dragonette Sweeper set, or it would be a setup lead with like the red card or whatever to just set up spikes. It wouldn't be this Terra breaker that I think a lot of people are expecting it to be. So I do think that while Mew has a lot of utility, it's nowhere near going to be as good as we expect it to be. And we see Hunby replying no to that. Next up, we have Sandy Sims talking about, I want the Elemental Monkeys back because my favorites, or Lapras because with Terra Blast can have an actual good physical ice move for D9 sets unless it gets Ice Spinner. So I'll be honest, if you're going to look at Lapras, one of the things I want to talk about with these Pokemon that are part ice that don't have good physical ice moves is you don't want to have to rely on Terra Blast Ice as your move, because you're better off turning into a water type than into an ice type. Because with Lapras's bulk being what, 155 HP, 130 HP. I think I'm mixing up with this. I'm mixing this up with something else. Either way, 130 base HP is really scary, and giving that a shit defensive type like ice doesn't make any sense. Turn into a pure water type, give it Ice Spinner, please. Just give it a good physical ice move that's not Avalanche or Ice Shard, and you'll be rocking with a Dragon Dance Lapras. As for the Elemental Monkeys, so they haven't been in the formats for a while. I've typed in Elemental Monkeys. I want to do it's Simi, Poor, Semi-Sage, and Semi-Seer. So these three, they have access to like Nasty Plot, they have decent speed, I believe their speed is like 105 or something. They have access to good coverage. The issue is, if they come back, I feel like they have to keep Simipour having Scald. And I think that's going to give it a lot of utility, because right now the only Pokemon that's going to be able to use Scald is going to be Volcanion, and Simipour should learn it because it learns it by level up. It should be able to keep Scald. Either way, it would be the best of the bunch in my mind. Semi-Sage would be the worst, and Semi-Seer just has very little utility outside of like super low tiers. I just feel like all three of them would just not see a lot of play in any format outside of like maybe if they have a Fake Out or Helping Hand. And I'll be honest, it's been so long that I haven't seen these Pokemon, I don't even remember if they even have access to these moves. Next up though is going to be Squish Marcus talking about him. him, I guess, would be Conkeldurr. I'm not sure, to be honest. Maybe it's a Roselia in the image, but I do feel like if Roselia comes back, that'd be great. I would love to see Roselia in competitive Pokemon. Again, Spikes, great a Violet user. Toxic Spikes, all really nice, just really inexpensive for Draft League. Doesn't do very much in the higher tiers of Smogon, but in the low tiers could do a lot of work as a great special attacking breaker, because it's got 100 base special attack, which is higher than a lot of other Pokemon in those tiers. Next up is going to be Joe. Talonmaster J talking about 3 options here. Aegislash, easily top 3 steal with the all-time. No, let's try this again. Easily top 3 steal of all time with Metagross. Disagree on that, but I think Aegislash is definitely top 3. Metagross is not. Aegislash does offer a lot, but I don't think it's coming back, partly because there exists Goldengo. They're not going to have the 1000th Pokemon come out and be overshadowed by Aegislash, which, hear me out, will likely be better. I know that we all love and think that Goldengo is amazing and infallible and a really good Pokemon, and it is. Good as Gold is a crazy ability. I don't think that Goldengo would be as good as Aegislash because of the 50-50s that Aegislash offers, which is really important, especially when you have access to Terastallizing. Togekiss, because more Fairy-type Pokemon would be nice. Yeah, but also access to more Defog. Togekiss is one of the few Pokemon that would really be a good Defogger, and I don't think it makes any sense for it to just lose Defog at all. But having Defog with Serene Grace, with Thunder Wave, all those things is really, really nice. And having access to a Fairy type, another one, is amazing. There are very few Fairy types available in the game. If I just go to Showdown and type in Fairy over here, look at them. Azu, Grimmsnarl, Hatterene, Iron Valiant, Fluttermane, which is banned to Ubers now, Klefki, Mimikyu, Screamtail, Tinkaton. Then you have these guys over here, which, I mean, they're below average nowadays. Screamtail is... I find Screamtail to be just a waste of space. It got so shafted in my mind. Either way, Tinkaton could have been better. Mimikyu is nice, but again, it doesn't really fulfill the role of a Fairy type. Klefki is nice, but again, doesn't fill the role of a Fairy type. It fills the role of a Hazard Setter. And everything else here is more offensive, or Grimmsnarl for screens or whatever, Hatterene for Trick Room, and you get the point. All right, Togekiss would be really nice to have as a generic Fairy type. And then Darmanitan, regular was all right, but could you imagine Zen mode, a G-Darm with Snow instead of Hail? Probably hard to KO. Zen mode Darmanitan, let me take a look at Darmanitan with the Zen mode, the Galar Zen mode. Yeah, it has really bad defense, so I don't think it matters too much with the Snow. Either way, just having access to Darmanitan in general is scary because these Pokemon hit really hard and they always have a home in different formats, whether it's in singles or in doubles. They can always do something, which is really valuable. Next up, we have Midnight Wolf talking about Gliscor. It feels like forever since I've been able to use it. Yeah, it's been like 4 years, but we already spoke about Gliscor, and I do feel like Gliscor should come back. Next up is going to be Godslayer Oshawa talking about the, well, what is this thing called? Oh my god, Ambipom, that's the one. And we have Humby talking about, okay, but Mousehold. So basically, they're saying that it's one of the favorites, top 3 overall, and the prospect of Terra Normal, Technician, Silk Scarf boosted double hit is far too tantalizing. I get it, but Humby is right. We do have Mousehold, which will likely just be a better version of Ambipom. Either way, Ambipom does have really solid coverage options. It has access to moves like Seed Bomb, has access to a lot of Technician boosted moves as well. U-turn is nice, knockoff as well. A lot of good things coming from it, and it hits pretty hard. So having access to all of that with the Terrestrial Normal would be really nice in my mind as well. Next up, we're going to see Empoleon talking about Superior, been away for so long, and Terra can fix his coverage, turning it into a demon. I agree. Personally, I don't think that Grass is a good type at all. I think it's a really below average type, and if you can give this, turn this into anything else, just something to help deal with the things that Grass resists Grass, then you'd be in a much better situation. I like that a lot. The only issue is what are you going to give it in terms of other coverage, because that's only one problem. And if you can turn to a Dragon type, well, you have Dragon Pulse, you don't need that. You can turn to an Ice type, why? A Fire type, why? You don't really want to be taking a Pokemon that is really strong against something like Water types and then weakening it. Yeah, you have Leaf Storm, but the main issue with that is that it's inaccurate, and it's still going to be inaccurate. So keep that in mind if you're looking at Superior. But yes, contrary, Superior with Leaf Storm and Terra Blast would be definitely deadly in competitive Pokemon. Next up, Mirror VGC talking about Ludicolo. There's only one answer, true from Humby. Yeah, look, we mentioned Ludicolo already. I'm cool with it coming back. I don't think it's going to be as good as Floatzel, but I definitely think it'll have some utility, that's for sure. Next up, Marcel talking about the team mascot just because, see how broken she is this Gen 2. Otherwise, Togekiss because there's not many good fairies around. So Togekiss we covered already, but Magearna. So Magearna actually was just banned from NatDex OU for good reason. That Pokemon is an absolute menace. It is terrifying to deal with, has access to basically everything you could possibly want. Its stat distribution, the stats are perfect. Having access to 65 speed, sure. fine, not the end of the world, but you have ways to speed yourself up with like shift gear. You have a slow pivoting option with Volt Switch. You have access to amazing stats on the defensive side, 80 HP with 115 defense and special defense, with the best typing in the game on top of that is crazy. This Pokemon we banned from basically every single competitive format, whether it's VGC, whether it's Draft League, or it's going to be Smogon. I feel very confident in saying that unless it's going to be very Ubers focused formats. Next up, we have Sully talking about Terra Nihilego. Sounds pretty disgusting. Yeah, imagine Terra Rock Nihilego. Like, if you were to go Nihilego Power Herb, nope, not Power Anklet, Power Herb, with the, what is it called, Meteor Beam, that would be disgusting when you Terra Rock. I feel like it'd be absolutely terrifying to deal with. Just keep in mind right now that depending on the format, certain priority options would be a bit scarier than others. Like Bullet Punch on Scizor is definitely very scary, one of the better checks because of that. So maybe instead of going Terra Rock, you can go Terra Fire and have a way to beat down steel types, which would be really scary as well with Nihilego. Next up, Roy Mustang, give me Alola Ninetales and Vikavolt. Vikavolt with Terra Electric and Ninetales with Snow seems so good to me. Yeah, putting Snow on Ninetales is a big deal because the fact that you get that boost, Ninetales Alola, look at your defensive stat. You're only base 75. Your HP and special defense are fine. Your special defense is well above average. Your HP is like below average, but it's fine. Either way, defense being at 75 only, give that a nice buff and you're in a really good position to take a lot of hits. Pack that with a nice Blizzard, a Moonblast, whatever the case might be, you're in a really good spot. And the fact that you're faster than the Abomasnow, that you would instantly become the best snow setter in the game, even outside something like Galar Slowking or Slowking with access to Chilly Reception. And for Vikavolt, Vikavolt is one of my favorite Pokemon to use in the previous generations. It's so defensive while being so offensive, and the fact that it gets access to Volt Switch, it gets Sticky Webs as well, having access to Bug Buzz to break through Psychic type Pokemon. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of good this Pokemon has access to, which is awesome. And look at that special attack at 145. I wish it was faster, but actually the speed is one of my favorite things about it. The fact that you can be a slow pivot for everything is huge. Boots on this thing, awesome. Roost, awesome. So many good things about Vikavolt. I'm really happy to see someone wrote down a Vikavolt on this discussion thread. Next up is going to be Piccolo mentioning Alakazam here. So Alakazam is a really good stopgap to a lot of Pokemon because it has access to Focus Sash with Magic Guard. There we go. So you can get past a lot of the Pokemon that are going to be trying to sweep you. So if you have to deal with like a Chi-Yu with Choice Specs or a Chien-Pao or just any breaking Pokemon like a Roaring Moon that's Dragon Danced up or whatever, you have Alakazam in the back to stop that in its tracks and then go for a support move or a really powerful offensive move to just break through. On top of that, it has really good stats at least on the special side. 135 special attack and 120 speed is great, but here's the thing. Has that been power crept? Maybe a little bit, but not to the point where this thing will drop past the UU tier at the worst case. I think it's still good enough to the point where it'll get a lot done, but it definitely has lost favor compared to other Pokemon. And I will say still that it does have its utility as the Magic Guard Focus Sash user, which I like a lot, or as Magic Guard with Life Orb because it has great coverage options like Psychic moves, Energy Ball has access to, I believe Shockwave is the electric move of choice now because you don't have access to Thunderbolt. You have access to Dazzling Gleam 2, Shadow Ball, Aura Sphere, Focus Blast. Actually, it never got, I don't think it got Aura Sphere, but either way, Focus Blast nonetheless. Moving on. Conkeldurr, one of my favorites, so yes, please, yeah, I mentioned Conkeldurr, and coming from Conkeldurr themselves, love to see it. Way to go. Next up is going to be Talon talking about Serperior, one of the favorite Pokemon, has yet to be in a Switch game, and I just want to spam Contrary Leaf Storms. Yep. And then over here we see Contrary works only one time each, so you I've been reading too much. Contrary only works one each time you send it out now, so unfortunately. Honestly, I don't think that's true. I feel like that was debunked. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that got debunked, so Contrary just works all the time no matter what. Moving on though, Ismagoga talks about Milotic, Absol, Rapidash, Ninetales, Roserade, Togekiss. So I mentioned Milotic already. I mentioned Alolan Ninetales. Regular Ninetales would be the same thing, but for Sun, and I think it'd be worse than Torkoal still, which is important to note. Togekiss I mentioned already. Roserade I mentioned Roselia. It'd be the same thing, but faster, a bit harder hitting. But that's really it. Just a nice Spiker, T-Spiker, decent coverage, good speed, yeah. And Grounded Poison, of course. Rapidash is fine. Rapidash has really good coverage. Rapidash has really good coverage options. Has moves like High Horsepower, has moves like Play Rough, Play Rough, has access to Mega Horn as well. It has access to Mystical Fire too, which is a great move to have. There's a lot of good things, and its stats are really well balanced, which I like a lot. The fire types are getting better, and the fact that you have access to Flash Fire specifically is great to help deal with opposing Pokemon or just to spam fire type attacks, and there are a lot of them. Pokemon like Skeledirge, Pokemon like Chi-Yu, for example, all these Pokemon are really, really strong. And then we have Absol. So what on earth is Absol going to do? I don't really know. I wish Absol's stats were better, I really do, but the fact that its abilities are below average, the fact that you have access to great attack, but that's it, this Pokemon's in power creep to existence. Why on earth would you run Absol, which the best thing it can do is click Sucker Punch when you have access to King Gambit, which is a better Pokemon all around, still just click Sucker Punch, has fine coverage. I know Absol is a bit better, but still, the speed stat is not that big of a difference from, well, it's 25 points, I know, but you're mostly clicking Sucker Punch because everything is faster than you and you're dying to one hit. So yeah, anyways, that's what I think about this. That's what you guys think as well about Pokemon that are going to be hopefully added on into the DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So make sure to do me a favor and leave a like on the video if you guys are enjoying this content. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as well to help us reach our sub goal of 4,000 subscribers. And of course, guys, make sure to comment your thoughts on this Pokemon down below, on these Pokemon here, which options you want to see down below. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow.